and welcome everyone to the Drishti IAS English YouTube channel. I'm Pragya with you today. In our today's episode of Polity in the Target UPSC 2024 Prelims Current Affairs series, we are going to study about the important constitutional and non-constitutional bodies that have remained in the news. So in this discussion, we will be studying about firstly the Election Commission of India, then the Comptroller and Auditor General of India, also known as the CAG. Then we will be studying about the Finance Commission, the Niti Aayog, the Central Information Commission, the National Human Rights Commission, the Central Bureau of Investigation, also known as the CBI, and lastly about the Lokpal. So let us begin our discussion today by discussing and understanding the Election Commission of India. So if you talk about the Election Commission of India, it has been mentioned under Part 15 of our Indian Constitution from Articles 324 to 329. And it is a very important constitutional body in India that is responsible for conducting free and fair elections in the India. So why was it in the news? Let us understand. Recently, the Chief Election Commissioner and other election commissioners Appointment, Conditions of Service and Term of Office Bill 2023 was passed by our Parliament, and this act that has recently been passed does what? It replaces the Chief Justice of India from the Selection Committee. That is responsible for selecting the Chief Election Commissioner and other election commissioners in India. So what exactly is the composition of this selection committee? It consists of the Prime Minister, a Union Cabinet Minister, nominated by the Prime Minister, and the Leader of Opposition. If the Leader of Opposition is not available, then the leader of that party which is in majority in the opposition. So this is the current composition of this selection committee, okay. But as per the Supreme Court judgment, CJI was the part of this selection committee, and now he has been replaced by the Union Cabinet Minister. Election Commissioner of India resigned from his post just days ahead of the announcement of the Lok Sabha elections, and this is why it was also in the news. And lastly, for the Lok Sabha election itself. Now let us study about the Election Commission of India. So it is an autonomous constitutional authority responsible for administering union and state election processes in India. So as I said that yes, it is the most important constitutional body that is basically responsible for conducting free and fair elections in India at the central as well as at the state level. It was established on 25th January 1950, and 25th January 1950 is also recognized as the National Voters' Day. So, to honor the establishment of the Election Commission of India, we recognize 25th January as the National Voters' Day. Administer elections to the Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha and the state legislative assemblies in India, and the offices of President and Vice President in India. So, let me know in the comment box below which body conducts elections for the urban and local bodies. Moving forward, at present, Election Commission is a multi-member body consisting of the Chief Election Commissioner and 2 election commissioners. They are appointed by the President as per the CEC and others EC's Appointment, Conditions of Service and Term of Office Act of 2023. They have a fixed tenure of 6 years or up to the age of 65 years, whichever is earlier. So basically, if you examine the provisions related to the Election Commission of India, the Constitution of India has tried to maintain the independency and impartiality of the Election Commission of India. salary and service conditions equivalent to that of the cabinet secretary. Removal process. Chief Election Commissioner can be removed only through a process similar to the removal of a Supreme Court judge by Parliament. So basically, to ensure the independence and impartiality of the Election Commission, we have this kind of processes for appointment and removal of the members of the Election Commission. Then other election commissioners can be removed based on the recommendation of the Chief Election Commissioner. The commission is assisted by the Chief Electoral Officer at the state level. Moving forward, let us examine the constitutional provisions. As I said, it is a constitutional body which is included in part 15, which pertains to elections from article 324 to 329. Article 324 states that superintendent's direction and control of elections to be vested in an election commission. Article 325, no person to be ineligible for inclusion in or to claim to be included in a special electoral roll on grounds of religion, race, caste or sex. That means you cannot discriminate a person for enrollment in the electoral rolls on the grounds of gender, race, caste, etc. So no kind of discrimination is allowed. Every Indian citizen who is 18 years or above has a right to vote, and a right to vote is a constitutional right. So basically, Article 326 talks about the universal adult suffrage. So elections to the House of the People and to the Legislative Assembly of States to be based on adult suffrage. What do you understand by adult suffrage? That means every citizen of India who is above the age of 18 years has a right to vote. In elections, and the age from 21 years was reduced to 18 years by the 61st Constitutional Amendment Act. And you cannot discriminate the Indian citizens on the ground of religion, race, caste, sex of birth, gender, etc. So no kind of discrimination is allowed. If the person is above 18 years, definitely he or she has a right to vote. Article 327 talks about the power of Parliament to make provision with respect to elections to the legislatures. Article 328 talks about the power of legislature of a state to make provision with respect to elections to such legislature. And Article 329 puts a specific bar to interference by courts in the electoral matters. In general circumstances, the court cannot interfere in any case of electoral matter by virtue of Article 329 of our Indian Constitution. Moving forward, let us talk about the Comptroller and Auditor General, also known as the CAG of India. So why was it in the news? In 2023, only 18 audit reports on the Union government's accounts prepared by the Comptroller and Auditor General were presented in the Parliament, and this indicates a decline in the number of audits tabled in the Parliament between 2019 and 2023. An average of 22 reports were presented each year, a drop from the average of 40 reports tabled annually between 2014 to 2018. And this poses serious questions on the functioning of the Union government as well as the state governments, because CAG audits the accounts of the Union government. It audits the various welfare schemes that are launched by the central government. Okay, and definitely if the reports are going down, if the number of the reports that are presented by the CAG to the Union government about its accounts, about the corruption practices, etc., then definitely it poses a serious question. Moving forward, let us talk about the Comptroller and Auditor General of India. So it is also a constitutional authority and he is the head of the Indian Audit and Accounts Department, IANAD. So when you will get selected in the UPSC and if you get this department, then you will be working under the CAG. He is the chief guardian of the public purse. It is also responsible for auditing the expenditure of the central and state governments and bodies significantly funded by the government. CAG is appointed by the President of India by warrant under his hand and seal, holds office for a period of 6 years or until reaching the age of 65 years, whichever is earlier. Removed by the President only in accordance with the procedure mentioned in the Indian Constitution, that is the manner same as removal of a Supreme Court judge. So now you will see a similarity between the removal procedure of Chief Election Commissioner as well as the CAG. Both are removed similar to the impeachment procedure that is being followed for the removal of a Supreme Court judge. Moving forward, CAG is ineligible to hold any office either under the Government of India or of any state once he retires or resigns as a CAG. The administrative expenses of the office of CAG, including all salaries, allowances and pensions, are charged upon the Consolidated Fund of India, that is not subject to vote by the Parliament. So our Indian Constitution has tried to maintain the independency and impartiality of the CAG, but unfortunately the reports of the CAGs are not binding on the Indian Parliament. They just present a report. It is on the Parliament whether to accept that report or to do something about it. So what do you think? Should CAG be more independent in India? Should CAG be impartial and should be given more powers to conduct audits of the accounts of the union and the state governments? Let me know in the comment box below, because we have seen that the reports are continuously on a decline. Now let us examine the constitutional provisions regarding the CAG. So Article 148 broadly deals with the CAG's appointment, oath and conditions of service. Article 149 deals with the duties and powers of the Comptroller and Auditor General of India. Article 150 says that the accounts of the Union and of the states shall be kept in such form as the President may, on the advice of the CAG, prescribe. Now let us study about the Finance Commission. So when we were studying about the CAG, we have seen that yes, the reports are going down, and definitely it is posing a serious question, because the CAG was responsible for unearthing various kind of scams on which actions have been taken, and this is definitely a serious question that whether CAG should be independent, functioning independently or not. Now let us talk about another important constitutional body, that is the Finance Commission. So finally the Parliament has constituted a 16th Finance Commission, and that is why it was in the news. Dr. Arvind Panagaria, former Vice Chairman of the Niti Aayog, is appointed as the Chairman of the 16th Finance Commission. And 16th Finance Commission has a very important role to play. It has to sort out matters of revenue between the central government and state government, and as of now the revenue sharing is very controversial in nature, with the states saying that the central government is not promoting equal revenue sharing. Now let us talk about the Finance Commission. So this is also a constitutional body established under Article 280 of the Indian Constitution. Its primary function is to recommend the distribution of financial resources between the central government and state governments. So basically any kind of financial resources, the distribution of them is foreseen by the Finance Commission of India. So the main primary aim of the Finance Commission of India is to sort out financial relation between the central government and the state governments. Moving forward, appointing authority, the President of India constitutes a Finance Commission every 5th year or whenever deemed necessary. Composition comprises a chairman and 4 other members, all appointed by the President of India. Qualifications, the Parliament determines the qualifications and manner of appointment of members. The chairman must have experience in public affairs. The other 4 members should have qualifications in High Court judge or eligibility for becoming a High Court judge. Specialized knowledge of finance and government accounts, experience in financial matters and administration, and special knowledge of economics. So, you see, this is where the necessary qualifications come from, because you have to sort the financial relationship between a union government and the state government. You have to see that the economy of a federal state is being maintained in a very just and a reasonable manner, and that is why you have these essential qualifications, that yes, they should be very sound in economics, finance, financial institutions, etc. They must be experienced professionals. So, by thinking this through, our constitutional makers have put forward this qualifications for being a member of the Finance Commission. Tenure: members serve for the duration specified in the presidential order and are eligible for reappointment. Removal: members can be removed under the following circumstances: proven unsound mind, involvement in misconduct, and conflict of interest from the Government of India. Now, let us study about the Niti Aayog. So, Niti Aayog is the think tank of the Government of India. Think tank of the Government of India. Now, why was Niti Aayog in the news? So, recently a discussion paper titled Multidimensional Poverty in India since 2005-2006 was released by the Niti Aayog. Niti for States platform, a digital initiative, was inaugurated by the Union Minister of Electronics and Information Technology. Let me know who is the current chairman of Niti Aayog in the comment box below. Now, let us talk about the Niti Aayog. So, it was created by a resolution of the Union Cabinet on January 1st, 2015, replacing the Planning Commission that was instituted in the year 1950. Serves as the premier policy think tank of the Government of India, offering policy inputs and fostering cooperative federalism by bringing states together to work in the national interest. So, Planning Commission was also accepted by the Union of India, Government of India, so as to promote the cooperative federalism, and same is the main purpose of constitution of this Niti Aayog. Now, let us talk about the composition of the Niti Aayog. So, if I talk about the composition: chairperson, the Prime Minister of India; vice chairperson, nominated by the Prime Minister, and he holds the rank of a cabinet minister; chief executive officer, CEO, nominated by the Prime Minister for a fixed tenure with the rank of secretary to the Government of India. So, this is the composition of the Niti Aayog. Moving forward to the full-time members, they hold the rank of a minister of a state. Then part-time members up to 2 members, ex officio members up to 4 members from the Union Council of Ministers nominated by the Prime Minister of India, and special invitees, expert with the domain knowledge nominated by the Prime Minister of India. So, this was the all over composition of this policy think tank of India, namely the Niti Aayog. Moving forward, Governing Council. It is chaired by the Prime Minister. It includes Chief Minister of all states and union territories with legislatures, Lieutenant Governors of other union territories. Then there is Regional Council as well, formed on a need basis. It is convened by the Prime Minister, comprises Chief Ministers of all states, Lieutenant Governor of union territories in the region, and it is chaired by the chairperson of Niti Aayog or his or her nominee. Now, let us talk about the Central Information Commission, and this Central Information Commission was also very much in the news because the activists are saying that its power has been downgraded, the independence has been downgraded, the impartiality has been downgraded. So, let us understand why was it in the news. So recently, a report card on the performance of information commissions in India 2022 to 2023 under Right to Information Act 2005 was released by the Satark Nagrik Sangathan or the SNS. Now let us talk about the Central Information Commission. So basically it was established in 2005 by the central government under the provision of Right to Information Act of 2005, and it is a statutory body formed under the RTI Act. So what is the controversy related to the Central Information Commission? So we were understanding that yes, now the tenure of the CICs depends on the parliament. Previously they used to have a tenure of fixed 5-year terms, but now it can be determined by the parliament, and this has been done by making amendment to the RTI Act in the year 2019, and that is why the critics are saying that you are trying to hamper the independence and impartiality of the Central Information Commission. The CIC consists of a Chief Information Commissioner and up to 10 Information Commissioners. Appointment: the CICs and ICs are appointed by the President of India. Their appointments are based on the recommendations of a committee consisting of the Prime Minister as chairperson, the leader of opposition in the Lok Sabha, and a Union Cabinet Minister nominated by the Prime Minister. So see, same selection commission composition. Which we saw for the election commission as well. So you can remember like this also, that yes, the composition of this committee is similar to the selection commission that is responsible for selecting the chief election commissioners and election commissioners in India. So these are the tricks by which you can remember these kind of informations, and whenever you will get a statement based question, you will not get confused. They hold office for a term as prescribed by the central government, and this is in controversy because they used to have a fixed 5-year term before, or until they reach the age of 65 years, whichever is earlier, and they are not eligible for any kind of reappointment. Now let us study about the National Human Rights Commission. So National Human Rights Commission, why was it in the news? So recently the NHRC or the National Human Rights Commission has requested an action taken report from the Odisha government regarding the Balasore train accident. Let us talk about the NHRC. So it was established on October 12, 1993 under the Protection of Human Rights Act 1993. And if you talk about human right, it is a universal right declared under Article 1 of UDHR. So every person, no matter in India or outside India, is having a basic human right, and this has been declared under Article 1 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. It has been amended by the Protection of Human Rights Amendment Act 2006 and Human Rights Amendment Act of 2019, established in conformity with the Paris Principles adopted for promoting and protecting the human rights. The commission consists of a chairperson and 5 full-time members and 7 deemed members. The chairperson is the former Chief Justice of India or a Supreme Court judge. Let me know in the comment box below who is the current chairperson of NHRC. The chairperson and members hold a office for a term of 3 years or until they reach the age of 70, whichever is earlier. The chairperson and members are appointed by the President of India based on the recommendations of a 6-member committee. The committee includes the Prime Minister of India, the Speaker of the Lok Sabha, the Deputy Chairman of the Rajya Sabha, the leaders of opposition in the Lok Sabha, the leaders of opposition in Rajya Sabha, and the Union Home Minister. Now let us understand the Central Bureau of Investigation or the CBI. But before this, let me ask you a question. Are the recommendations of NHRC binding on the parliament or any kind of state government? No, they are not binding. They can just call out for reports, but their reports and recommendations are not binding in nature, and that is why it is often being criticized as a toothless organization. So let me know in the comment box below, what do you think? Should NHRC be given more powers? Because yes, definitely they should be given more powers to deal with any kind of human rights violation, because that was the main purpose of forming a body such as NHRC. But if we'll talk about the issue of NHRC, their reports are not binding neither in the parliament or nor in the state legislative assemblies. Now let us talk about the Central Bureau of Investigation. So why Central Bureau of Investigation is in the news? So recently, the Tamil Nadu government has announced that it has withdrawn the general consent given to the CBI under Section 6 of the Delhi Special Police Establishment Act 1946, and with this 10 states in India have withdrawn the general consent that is being given to CBI by virtue of the Section 6 of Delhi Special Police Establishment Act. So basically understand that the consent given to CBI is of two types: case to case basis and general consent. So if a state withdraws the general consent, CBI becomes powerless in that state, because CBI will not be able to investigate a matter in the state, and that is where it differs from the National Investigating Authority or the NIA. NIA has the jurisdiction all over the India, but CBI has to ask permission from the states to investigate a matter. So if the general consent is withdrawn, CBI will have to take case to case basis permission from the state governments, and if the permission is being denied, then the CBI will become completely powerless in that state. So let us talk about the CBI. The CBI is the premier investigative agency in India, responsible for investigating serious cases and leading the fight against corruption within the country. Establishment, it was recommended by the Santhanam Committee on Prevention of Corruption 1962 to 1964 and established in 1963 by a resolution of the Ministry of Home Affairs. Moving forward, the CBI is not a statutory body, as it derives its power from the Delhi Special Police Establishment Act of 1946. It is the nodal police agency. The motto includes industry, impartiality and integrity. Now lastly, let us talk about the Lokpal and Lokayukts in India, that is the anti-corruption ombudsman in India. So if we'll talk about the CBI, the general consent is being withdrawn. So yes, there is a way out for CBI as well, and that is the judgment of Calcutta High Court, in which it has given some respite to the CBI. It has said that if the matter involves the central government employees in a state, and for example the state has withdrawn the general consent, then also CBI is empowered to investigate such matter. But the same is not with the case in the state government employees. For state government employees, it still needs to take the permission, but for central government employees involved in corruption or any kind of criminality or any kind of anti-national activities, then definitely the case can be investigated by the CBI even if the general consent is withdrawn. However, this matter is currently sub judice before the Honorable Supreme Court of India, but till then CBI has a way out in the form of this Calcutta High Court judgment. Now coming to the Lokpal and Lokayukts in India. Why was it in the news? Because after a gap of nearly 2 years, former Supreme Court Justice A.M. Khanwilkar has been appointed as the chairperson of the Lokpal and Lokayukts in India. So if I talk about the Lokpal, it is a statutory body functioning as anti-corruption ombudsman in India. and it is a multi-member body consisting of one chairperson and a maximum of 8 members. The term for the Lokpal chairperson and members is 5 years or until they reach the age of 70 years, whichever is earlier. Moving forward to the composition of the Lokpal. So, chairperson should be either a former Chief Justice of India, a former Supreme Court judge, or an eminent person with impeccable integrity and outstanding ability, having at least 25 years of expertise in anti-corruption policy, public administration, vigilance, finance, law, or management. Moving forward to the members of Lokpal and Lokayukt, up to 8 members, half of whom must be judicial members and at least 50% from SC, ST, OBC, minorities and women. Judicial members, either a former Supreme Court judge or a former Chief Justice of a High Court. Non-judicial members, eminent person with at least 25 years of expertise in relevant fields. If you talk about the appointment, members are appointed by the President based on the recommendations of a selection committee. The composition of this selection committee includes the Prime Minister, the Speaker of the Lok Sabha, the Leader of Opposition in the Lok Sabha, the Chief Justice of India or a sitting Supreme Court judge nominated by the Chief Justice of India, and one eminent jurist. So, basically, if you look at this composition, it is a combination of judiciary as well as the legislature and executive. So, with this, we come to a conclusion of our today's discussion. We have seen the various constitutional and other non-constitutional bodies that were in the news recently. I hope this session was insightful for you. If you have any feedback regarding this session, kindly drop it in the comment box below. If you liked today's discussion and found it to be helpful, kindly like the video and subscribe to our channel for more such interesting updates. Thank you.
For more informative content, like, share and subscribe, and do not forget to press the bell icon to get the notifications.